one of the guys you got that's making a big jump. Seems like he's making somewhat of an impact so far. Michael Garner. What's what are you seeing from him, and what do you think is kind of been key to him? Having a pretty solid spring so far.
Sure. I think one thing we've done, we've kind of increased the diversity of skill sets, between the outside backers / edge guys at those positions. And Mike represents that diversity. He's, 6'6", 6'7", weighing 300 pounds. And, really is doing a good job. You got to remember, coming out of high school at a Bloom, it was probably only like 220, went down to Grambling. And so this has been a new world here the last, 3 months, just in terms of the resources and things, and just, a lot of stuff is different. So he's done a really good job in the run game. And, I'm impressed with the progress he's made. There's work to be done, but, it's difficult to find somebody at that size that's athletic. He has multiple years of eligibility, which excites us. And obviously he's kind of a hometown product, being from the Chicagoland area with a close support system. I think that all those factors allowed him to kind of, come in here and have some success. The highs are really good. Like, the highs can really help us. My job is to work on the consistency of play down in, down out.
Coach, when we spoke to you last year, you mentioned the size and kind of the numbers you wanted for a position. Your position was 6'4", 250, around there. It seems like you guys have gotten bigger. Has that kind of changed this year, and what are you looking for from your outside linebacker?
Yeah, and just like piggyback what I said earlier, we've changed some things schematically, defense, which you guys up on the windows have seen. And so, we're trying to find a diverse group of skill sets. And so, between, take a look at a Corey Walker who played the MAC and is, again, a guy that's, 6'5" and over 290. You got that, but then you also looking for some different skill sets like a Sebastian Cheeks, which I give Sebastian a ton of credit. Probably should have played him a little bit more in 24, but he's had a really strong spring. A Tyrese Fearbury, even an early enrollee, Nick Clayton, they provide just a little bit more get off, a little bit more twitch, a little bit more snap. Hopefully some more pass rush ability. So I think we've juggled around. We've moved Aaron Witt. He's still with me on some packages, but he backs off the ball and plays some other situations. So I think the biggest theme heading into 25 from my room is just a lot of diversity of body types, a lot of diversity of skill sets, and working to try to blend our schemes and put the guys in the proper position to help our defense be better than it was last year.
Mike talked about less of a do-your-job mentality and more of be a game changer.
Yeah.
Just from your perspective, what does that mean to you, and how do you get that?
Yeah, I think what it means is on the guys in the front, and again, E.J. Whitlow and I work together, we have more of a mentality of getting off the ball and trying to operate on their side of the line of scrimmage. Clearly, you guys know, I don't have to remind you where we were nationally in terms of tackles for losses. We had decent pressure rate, but we didn't finish on sacks, and so we need to do that. We want to try to create more negative plays. And we are on a mission to try to create more negative plays without having to bring pressure packages. And so, it's a combination. It's a combination of the people that we recruit and the athletic skill set. It's also the way in which we coach them. We coach the techniques and the fundamentals, but we have got to get more that way and try to get a little bit more football players as opposed to football players and kind of get, there. Now, there's still you can't go completely rogue and sacrifice, the scheme of our defense. But when is it acceptable to take a shot? And when is it acceptable to try to do that? Because we didn't create enough negatives last year, and we have to do that.
There's a lot of new guys in the building, but one of the main returners is Darrell Peterson.
Yeah.
How does he kind of fit into this equation? He's gotten a little bigger, it seems. How does
He has gotten
fit into
bigger.
the equation, and especially maybe in that pass rush sense, how do you think he can improve this year?
I think when you look back upon 24, Darrell was really, really strong in the run game. And so we believe that by putting on some more weight, he can still be a really effective guy in regards to stopping the run. I think most of his success is actually last year, and what we're seeing in terms of affecting the quarterback, we're a little bit more of a 3 technique than off the edge, but he's still working both of those skill sets. And I'm a ways from figuring out, Coach Whitlow and I are ways from figuring out, who are that best combination of people that can affect the quarterback. Our sack totals are not where they needed to be. We've got to finish on the quarterback. We were able to get some pressure last year, but finish on the quarterback. So is Darrell a little more inside on the edge, to be determined, but has been hands down the leader in my room in regards to the standard at which we need to play. The physicality and the effort and the attitude, and I have a lot of respect for him. He was a part of a transition in the coaching staff, and now he's part of a transition in a defensive scheme. And we have forced through that transition in the defensive scheme. He is being put in some different positions that we feel more suit what his strengths are.
You mentioned Cheeks. He was a guy that moved over to your room last season during
Yeah.
training camp.
Yeah.
What do you think he is able to do? Maybe a little bit undersized for this new role for that, but makes up for it in speed. How does
Sure.
he kind of balance that out?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a sick get off. I mean, he puts a lot of pressure on tackles and tight ends in the run game because of his get off. I mean, if you watched it, you would be pleasantly surprised with his physicality at his size. And again, we have got him, we want to try to have him somewhere between over 240 for sure. If we get him in that 245 to 250 range, I don't think we sacrifice the get off. Sebastian is really good at the point of attack in the run game. And he did down the stretch there. He was able to affect the quarterback. We played the Minnesota loss is unacceptable, but he did have some pressures on the quarterback and new to the position. I think it's been a really healthy transition for Sebastian. Like times at life on the edge, your vision is kind of cut in half. You don't have to worry about what's outside of you. A lot of stuff's inside of you. And so I think that transition where you're playing the box at linebacker, there's a lot of things coming at you. That transition has allowed him to play faster and more confident. Definitely seen that. So he's a lot on his plate right now. Some of the packages, he's off the ball, and then on some other packages, he's on the edge, and then he's definitely got to be one of our most effective pass rushers.
You mentioned Nick Clayton.
Yeah.
Obviously a real good pass rusher in high school.
Yeah.
When it comes to that size, what are you kind of seeing from him this spring, and do you expect him to bulk up a little more like Sebastian?
Yeah, so here's the deal about Nick. He played up into the semifinals in the state of Florida, and there was actually a cancellation of game because of a hurricane. So he, I think, ended up stopped playing on December 15th, and then he went straight down almost to that All-Star game down in San Antonio, Texas, and had I think 2 or 3 sacks in the All-Star game. And then the All-Star game got done on Saturday. He caught a flight to Madison and started here on Monday. Okay, so the August, September, October, November, December, he showed up just right at 200. He's up consistently over 220 right now. So Coach Collins, those guys have done a good job. We further expect him to continue to grow. I've seen some really good things out of Nick. He is, again, I don't make promises or guarantees, but he's definitely on a path, to help us in the fall. And I think probably that role is going to be as a pass rusher, and could be, an impactful guy. He can run. We take a look at his top end speeds. He's the fastest guy, really. Him and Cheeks are a couple of the fastest guys in Fearby in my room. And so those guys got to be, all three of those guys got to be guys on special teams too.
So another young guy, Ernest Willer. What's standing out to you about his development? What do you see from him?
Yeah, Ern and Sebastian, it was tough for him. You move mid-fall camp. Not easy. You don't have the advantage of spring ball and summer workouts, and you're thrown into stuff in fall camp. It wasn't in a position last year as a freshman to really play. So I've seen growth in his game in terms of stopping the run, and it's continuing to improve. So we just have to continue to work, and it's just repetitions and feel on the edge, in the game. And so we're committed to that, and he's getting a lot of reps this spring to see what product he'll put on tape.
Yeah, Matt, obviously a guy that you know very well is Nazir. And he's got a little bit of a limbo right now with the potential court case in May. Just how is he handling that, and what's that like kind of watching somebody that knows him so well?
He's been handling it great. The door was shut. There was a little light. So that was a hard time. What am I going to do? There was some flux. You don't know what your future is going to look like. And then the court case, came back. I think gave him boosted his spirits. Was really excited about coming back. I think he's approaching it like he's all in right now. I see that. So you guys know. I think arguably I'm biased because I know since high school, but thought he had a really productive year last year. We look forward to him, and Rico's back, and so it adds a lot of depth there. And then another guy I coached too, JVR Suggs. He's been doing a really good job as a 3 technique, and so that was kind of Nye coming back did have a factor with Suggs because they played together at Grand Valley State, and they're very, very close friends. And so I think actually Suggs being here and Nazir being here has had a positive impact, both those guys. So last thing I'll say is that, special teams, nobody ever asked me about special teams. So I'm going to talk about special teams if that's all right. So, last year, I think it got probably overshadowed with some of the results of our season, but we were top 20 in kickoff return, top 10 in net punt. In terms of kickoff efficiency, we were top 10. So we build off that. The thing we have to really address is the punt return unit. We weren't very good on the edges holding up, and we have to establish a punt returner. That position last year was not where we needed to be. So I'm cautiously optimistic. Take a look at Ballard, who came in from Ohio State, got good ball skills, can run. He's getting some reps right there. Tyrell Henry, second year in the program. Vinny is really good on kickoff returns. That was part of the reason we were top 20 was Vinny, and Vinny's taking reps. But that's an area, the punt block, punt return unit is an area of focus that we got to get better at.